Have you ever bought a plant, taken it home, and put it in an area that you think is good, only to realize a couple weeks later that it's already died or gotten really sick? This happens to a lot of people, and it makes them think that they don't have a green thumb. Today's lecture is all about to help you decide which plant to buy and where to put it so that it will continue to do well. It's a common mistake to mess this up, but if you use these tools, you'll be better equipped to make the right decision on where to plant or place that plant. Let's get started. We're going to start by reviewing climate, which we covered in our last lecture. We're then going to learn what a microclimate is and how to take advantage of microclimates to grow plants more successfully. We're then going to learn some more tools for choosing the right plant, such as understanding plant adaptive strategies, understanding the ability for that plant to tolerate heat and cold, and we'll learn about 2 tools to help us determine how cold our region gets and how hot. In review of what we covered last time, what is weather? Weather is what's happening outside right now, but climate is the average over a long period of time. The elements that make up climate are temperature, precipitation, humidity, light, and wind. These all influence plant growth. Other factors that modify climate are distance from the equator, topography, nearby presence of large bodies of water, and climate modifications by humans, such as smog. So what's a microclimate? A microclimate is a small climate within a larger climate. The best gardeners take advantage of these small climates to plant plants that their region could not usually naturally support. This area might be less windy, more shady, moister, warmer, and many different other things. These differences affect plants' ability to grow, either positive if you plant the right plant in the area, or negatively. Microclimates can be natural or artificial. As I said, the best gardeners notice these and take advantage of them to plant the right plant. Let's go through some examples of outdoor microclimates. An example of an outdoor microclimate could be under a large tree in your yard. This is somewhere that you could plant shade-loving plants, partially shade plants, or full shade plants. Another area could be a lower area in your yard that holds some moisture. This area can be a little bit cooler and can experience frost when other areas of your yard are not experiencing frost. These are called frost pockets, and therefore you should plant plants that prefer cooler temperatures and can handle cooler temperatures, or else these areas of your yard might have death. But if you plant the right plants, some plants will flourish there. If you have a lot of pavement or large buildings near where you live, you may be experiencing what you see in this picture, which is a maple leaf with scorched leaves. Pavement and large infrastructures absorb heat during the day and expel this heat during the night, making the area warmer, and that prolonged heat can harm plants. So if the plant is not adapted to higher temperatures, this can cause severe damage. This is very common in parking lots, that the trees that are planted will look kind of sick. Now let's talk about indoor microclimates. This is where it comes in, where to place that new plant that you just bought. So you'll want to look at that pot, in the pot that you just bought with the new plant. You'll usually have a tag, and it will say full sun, partial shade, or full shade. So understanding the microclimates that are in your house will help us understand that. Also, the temperature that it likes. That's not usually on the tag, but you can Google that specific plant and see what temperature range it prefers. For example, upstairs rooms can be warmer than downstairs ones because heat rises. A basement could be 20 degrees Fahrenheit cooler than the rest of the home. The north side of the home could be a lot cooler than the south side. Humidity also varies in different places of your home because of the water. Bathrooms and kitchens are usually much more humid than other areas of the house. Windows provide microclimates that you can take advantage of. Near windows, especially on the south side, your plant will get a lot more sun, so you'll want to place those full sun plants near those windows. This is a plant that really prefers full sun, and it's placed really close to my window that you can't see right now, but it's doing well because of that. But if you move this plant further away from the window, it's going to get less sun during the day, and therefore won't do very well since this is a sun-loving plant. But for the plants that are partial shade or full shade, you would want to move them farther away from the window, or put them near a window in your home that gets less light during the day. You'll also want to consider that some windows are very poorly insulated, so that can make the areas close to a window very cold in the wintertime or very hot during the summer. You'll want to take note of this to make sure that you're not freezing or scorching your plants. Let's talk more about choosing the right plant. Certain plants are adapted to challenges, and you'll want to take advantage of those to fulfill your goals. For example, some plants are very cold tolerant. They do this through winter dormancy. Like deciduous trees lose their leaves in the fall so that they can go dormant throughout the winter. Think of it like a hibernation, as the bears do. Another example of adaptive strategies is water stress tolerance. The ability to store water in some plants is called succulence. That stored water makes the leaves fleshy and thick. Think of succulent plants and also cacti. This makes water conservation and allows the plant to go for longer periods of time without being watered. Cactus can also take this to an extreme, and they do not have any leaves, only modified leaves, which are the spines. This makes them very drought tolerant. Other ways that plants can reduce water loss is by having a wax layer over the plant leaf, or a thick covering of silvery hair that reflects sunlight and insulates the leaf from the air. Some plants are adapted to growing in a forest canopy, so underneath the forest. So think of lots of trees above them that are shading the light, and therefore they're not getting very much light, so they have to have huge solar panels, which are leaves, to capture as much light as they can. So these plants that are adapted for growing under the forest canopy have very large leaves. Subsequently, they're very shade tolerant. They can handle not getting very much light. So it's very common for these plants to be grown indoors because indoors are warm and they don't have as much light usually, so these plants do really well. I was amazed to see this when I went to the rainforest for the first time, and I recognized many of the plants because we grow them very commonly indoors. So that was really cool to see. Moving on, for the steps for choosing the right plant, it's really important that you know your goal. What's your goal for this plant? Is the goal aesthetics, or do you want to produce fruit? And what is your level of commitment? Are you committed to watering this plant often, or would you rather have a plant that's more drought tolerant so that if you forget about it, it's not as big of a deal? For those of you who often forget to water plants, succulents are a great idea because if you forget to water them, they have the water stored in their leaves and they'll do just fine. That being said, you might want to grow a plant that will produce fruit or vegetable. You'll also want to consider your soil type and your water availability in your region. Then you'll want to understand your climate and your microclimates within your space. So we're going to go over two tools that will help you understand your climate. The first is the USDA Plant Hardiness Zone, and the second is the American Horticulture Society Heat Zone Map. The USDA Plant Hardiness Zone is very helpful for deciding if your plant will be able to handle the coldness in your region. Certain plants have cold tolerance, but others do not. So because of this, the USDA made a map mapping the minimum winter temperatures, basically how cold a specific region gets, so that you can match that number that they've given that region to the number of on a plant, so that you can find two plants that are compatible. So you want to find a plant that can handle the cold in your region, designated by a number, and then you'll match it to your region and see if it's compatible. This is really helpful. 11 zones are outlined in the USDA plant hardiness zones, ranging from completely frost-free, such as areas in Florida, Texas, and California, or to a negative 50 Fahrenheit or colder zone in Canada. So this range is very, very great in North America. The map takes into account cold mountain climates as well that are in warmer zones, such as in Colorado, because as we learned last time, climate is affected by a lot of different factors. It's not just by how far north you go. This is the USDA plant hardiness zones. You can see the different colors designating the different regions that have an associated average minimal winter temperature. The USDA plant hardiness zones is the most common plant hardiness zone map used, but some states even have a more specific zoned map for helping you decide what will do well there. The University of California at Davis has a list of 21 separate climate zones due to the influence of the Pacific Ocean and mountain ranges on the California climate. Depending on where you live, there's more than likely a plant hardiness zone for your area that you can access on the internet. Next, let's talk about heat. So certain plants cannot handle the cold, but certain plants can also not handle the heat. And other plants flourish when there's a high temperature. Because of this, the American Horticultural Society developed a zone map mapping how many days per year are over 86 degrees. So on average, how many 86 degrees days does a specific region have, and then they map that out. The range in this map that we're about to see is 0, so no days that are over 86, to 210 days that are over 86 degrees. So this is the map. Interestingly, where I grew up, which is in Minnesota, has quite a cold climate. So right here is where I'm from, ranging from the 4 to 5 zone. So there's somewhere between 14 to 45 days that are over 86 degrees. Whereas regions such as in Texas, we're going to have many more. So this zone would be 120 to 150 days in the year that are over 86 degrees. So you can see this ranges, and this is going to affect which plants will flourish in these different areas. Another reason to understand why this heat zone is important is because there are symptoms associated with plants being in an area that's too hot for them. The plants could scorch, the plant could fail to flower, and then subsequently not be able to produce fruit. The plant leaves could also bleach or have very pale color. The plant would just not grow at a normal rate at all. So it's really important to make sure that you're planting the plant with the correct zone. So let's go over an example for using these two maps. So let's pretend that you live in the USDA Zone 7 and the American Horticulture Society Heat Zone 7 as well. So the question is, can you grow a lily plant? If you don't know the zones of the lily plant, you're not alone. The best thing that you can do is Google the zones. So you can just Google lily zone, USDA, and AHS, and it will pop up. Or if you're just buying a lily, on the tag that you're buying it, will usually have 2 sets of numbers. So the heat tolerance is listed for second, 8 through 1, and the USDA low temperature or hardiness zone is listed first. So if we're living in a zone that's anywhere between 3 and 8, it will be okay, or 8 through 1. So you can see that this zone is very large for lily because lily is well adapted to many different places. So if we are living in zone 7 and 7, are we going to be okay? Yes, because 7 falls in both of the zones. You can also see these zones when you're buying online. If the zone is not provided, you can also just Google it. For example, in this zone, it's not providing both for you, but as I said, you can just Google it. So it's only providing the low temperature zones, it's not providing the heat zones, so you'll just have to do your own research on the internet. These maps are extremely helpful, but you'll want to consider some other things, such as the location where you're planting it. Is it full sun, partial shade, or full shade? Is there any microclimates in your home or in your yard that you can take advantage of? What are the soil characteristics and plant nutrient status of your soil? How much water are you willing to water the plant? A huge important consideration to take is that some plants may be able to handle the heat, but only if they have enough water. You know that you drink more water when it's hot outside, so plants are the same way. If it's very hot, you need to be giving that plant adequate water. Same in the colder times, plants are still using water as well, so adequate water is necessary if you're going to follow these zones. So the classification on the map considers assumes that you're watering the plant adequately, so it's important to water the plant adequately. In summary, today we talked all about how to choose which plant will do well in your area. We talked about microclimates and how to take advantage of them. We talked about plant adaptive strategies, so finding a plant that has an adaptive strategy that will overcome the challenge that's in your area. And then we learned about the two maps and how to understand those zones to find a plant that's compatible with our growing area. Thank you so much for your time, and as always, if you have any questions, feel free to post them or email me. Have a great day.